All right, let's do this. So we're going to get into it pretty quickly today. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about neglecting rest times when you're training. So what I want to really get into and what I really want to focus on with this episode is the mindset around rest while you're training and just really why you need to switch your mindset around rest in order to get more out of your training. So we're going to get right into it, but before we do, as you know, if you've tuned into the show before, you know why we're here. You know what we're doing. We're here to help athletes reach higher level versions of themselves. We're here to help athletes actually build the dream careers that they want in their sport. We are here to help you understand the mindset, habits, the rituals, everything you need outside of the sport itself that are going to actually help you level up in your career. So we're going to get right into the show, and we're going to be talking about neglecting rest times while you train. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are talking about neglecting your rest time while you train. So the first thing I wanted to touch on with this is the mindset around rest while you're training and the why we need to switch up that mindset. For a large portion of athletes that I work with, when they start working with me, they're under the impression, and I know a lot of you are too, that the more I train, the better result I'm going to get. And that leads to them thinking the less I rest, the better result I'm going to get. The more I train, the less I rest, the better result I'm going to get. And this just isn't true, guys. Like, more training doesn't equal better. And I've talked about this a lot of times on this show, so I'm not going to dig too deeply into that. But this is what is affecting a lot of people's mentality around rest time. And that's what I want to touch on today. If you are in a training session, or one of the other pieces as well, before we get into that, that really causes people to neglect rest times while they train is that they think, I don't get to rest while I fight, so why would I rest while I train? And they just think, do more. If my round is 5 minutes, then if I can go for 10 minutes without stopping, then I'll be just fine to go for that full 5-minute round. And finally, that mindset of more equals better and that mentality that, we don't rest while we fight, so why do we rest while we train, is what makes a lot of people neglect rest times while you train. And today we're going to talk about why they're important. So the first reason that rest times are extremely important while you train is you've got to understand that your training should not be exactly like your fight. Your goal when you're training is to set yourself up for success in the fight. This does not mean every training session should be 3 5-minute rounds or 3 3-minute rounds or 5 3-minute rounds or whatever it is that you're actually fighting, but it should set you up to improve your ability to go for that duration. So now, what do I mean when I say improve your ability to go for that duration? Now, if you are stronger, then every movement you make takes less effort. Therefore, the stronger you are, obviously, to an extent, we're not powerlifters here. We're not focused on simply building strength. But the stronger you are, the less effort your movement takes. That means the less you are going to gas yourself out, or the less you are going to tire yourself out, the more and more you fight. So one of the physical qualities we are aiming to build is strength, but making sure that it's through proper ranges of motion and through actual good movement patterns. So if we are building strength, the goal is not just lift a weight for 5 full minutes without stopping. The goal is to build your base of strength, usually within 3 to 4 sets on an exercise of 3 to 6 reps at about 8 or 9 out of 10 RPE. Now, RPE is rate of perceived exertion. So basically an 8 would mean that when you finish your set of 6 reps, you feel like you had 2 left in the tank. So it's heavy, but it's not an absolute max. Now, one of the things that, we want to take into account while you're doing that is rest times in between. Because if you truly want to hit that 8 out of 10 RPE, then you need to recover between your sets. So you're going to have a better strength benefit from actually resting between sets. Now, there's not a specific, I'm not going to sit here and tell you 60 seconds between sets exactly, or exactly 90 seconds or anything like that. But if it's a heavy set of squats, allow your body to recover before you do another heavy set of squats. Don't try to run into it right away. Why? Because the goal is building strength. The goal is not burn out your legs. And if you're doing it like this, what you're going to start to notice, you're going to continue to see strength improvements. But what you're not going to have to do is sacrifice your skills training. Who resonates with this? They do a crazy hard leg day, whole bunch of sets, whole bunch of reps, super heavy, legs are burning, legs are jello. And then they go to try to do some MMA training the next day or boxing training the next day or whatever it is for you. And your legs are just exhausted and you can't actually hit that training session to the level that you want to. Who resonates with that? I know I speak to a ton of athletes every day that have done this to themselves. I know I've done this to myself with my own training and just having other activities going on the next day. We've all done it. But guys, this is not the way to set yourself up for long-term success. The way you are going to set up for long-term success is simply by progressively overloading, where you're working, you're training, you're pushing yourself, but you're not pushing yourself to that burnout level every session, because that way you're not going to be sore for 3, 4, 5 days and sacrifice all your skills training. So by paying attention to the rest times when you're lifting, when you're sprinting, when you're doing jumps, etc., you're going to be able to get more out of your strength and conditioning work. And in turn, you're going to be able to get more out of your actual skills training as well. So that's what I really want to touch on there. So that's movement, that's building physical qualities. And I'm not going to dig too deep into all the other ones, but the same idea, guys. If you're training speed, think about a lot of you guys do sprints to improve your speed. If you do a sprint as hard as you can and then you don't let yourself fully recover, is that next rep actually as fast as you can go? Of course not. And don't try to tell me it is, because it's fucking not. Maybe 2 or 3 reps keep the speed, but then by rep 4, rep 5, rep 6, you're slowing down. Not because you're a bad athlete, because you're a human being, and that's how human beings work. However, if you're trying to improve your speed and you let yourself adequately recover between every set that you do, now you're going to actually hit either 100% or very, very close to that 100% with every set that you do. And by hitting closer and closer to that 100% every single time you do a set, what's going to start happening is you're going to start noticing that your speed is actually improving, because every sprint that you're doing is actually getting faster. Every sprint that you're doing is getting faster, which means your overall speed is going to improve. But if you don't rest in that time, you don't allow yourself adequate recovery time between sets, you're not going to get faster, because you're not actually doing enough at 100% or close to 100% speed to improve that quality. So again, simply by actually paying attention to the rest times between your sets, you're going to be able to get more out of your session, and you're not going to be as crushed every time you train. Because if you're doing sprint work, that's hard. If you're just repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating, but if you're actually resting between, you're going to be able to recover faster. And if you're able to recover faster, guys, you're going to get more out of the session, and you're not going to be crushed when you go to fight the next day. So one thing I really want to touch on as well is that mentality that there's no rest while you fight. I've had a lot of athletes tell me that when I'm talking to them, DMing back and forth, talking about training. Well, I do these like 5-minute supersets because there's no rest while I fight, so I don't want to have any rest while I train either. And guys, the problem with that mentality is that, yes, you're moving constantly. Let's say 5-minute rounds, obviously, depending on the sport, that's going to change. You're moving constantly. So I understand why you would think, I'm moving constantly in a fight, I need to move constantly for 5 minutes while I train. But first off, you're sparring, you're doing drills, you're doing MMA work, so your strength and conditioning work doesn't need to perfectly replicate that as well, because eventually we hit a point of overkill. And second, though, this one's very, very important. I really want to make sure I touch on this one. The pace of that fight is going to be different every single time. No 2 fights are going to feel the exact same. No 2 fights you're going to move the exact same way, do the exact same things, throw the exact same strikes. So when you're trying to build your conditioning by going for the same duration, you're not actually going for the same duration, because the pace is different anyway. So instead of just focusing for going for that amount of time, don't you think it'd be better if you spent your time focused on improving your strength and movement efficiency to make the work that you're doing easier? Improving your ability to move faster, to be able to be more explosive, and then taking all of those physical qualities that we're improving with the strength and conditioning work and putting those into the fight. So while a lot of you are just going for 5 minutes at a time because that's the length of the round, those who start to actually understand my goal isn't to just move for 5 minutes, my goal is to be at my physical peak for those 3 5-minute rounds, are going to start to pay attention to rest times, not focus on just burning out their legs, but actually focus on getting a good effect from the session. And in turn, they're going to see better results to the sport that allow them to actually dominate all of you guys thinking every session needs to look exactly like the sport. Now, the one last piece I wanted to touch on is that mentality of more training is better. So that's one thing I hear a lot of people say, the more cardio I do, the better gas tank I'm going to have. The more work I do, the better I'm going to be able to fight. The more training I do, the better result I'm going to get. And again, I understand why you think that. I understand where the mentality comes from. But guys, it's just not true. That'd be like saying I have a water bottle that holds 32 ounces of water, but the more water, the better. So I'm going to pour 50 ounces of water in there. What's going to happen? You're not just going to magically get more hydrated. You're going to spill the last 18 ounces of that water over the sides of the water bottle. And that's what a lot of you guys are doing with your training. Your goal is not to be the guy who can go for the longest or the girl who can go for the longest. Your goal is to be the guy or the girl who can go the hardest for 15 minutes. Depending on the sport, however long it actually is for you. We're using the example of 3 5-minute rounds here. But your goal is to be the person who can go the hardest for the duration of time the competition lasts. That's it. So if you are just training more and training more and training more and training more, that would be, again, like trying to pour 50 ounces of water into a 32-ounce bottle because more water is better. Like, yeah, more water is better until you're spilling the water over the sides and not actually getting to the point where you can drink it. Okay, more training's better until the point where it's overkill and you're not doing the right things and you're just working for the sake of working and it's not translating to the result you want in the sport. So if you're training 15, 20, 25 hours a week and you find you can't last for 3 5-minute rounds 3 nights a year, the issue is not the volume of training that you're doing. The goal for you should not be add in 2 more runs a week, add in 3 more weight sessions, add in this or add in that. The goal needs to be switch up how you're training so that it can actually lead to the result that you want. Put 32 ounces of water into the 32-ounce bottle so that when you actually go to use it, you've maximized what you can get out of that bottle. Train the actual right, efficient way so that you can maximize the results you get back into your sport. And one of the most, if not the most important things that go into training the most effective way to get the best results in your sport is listening to the rest times. The goal is not to burn yourself out. The goal is to set yourself up for success when the day of the competition comes around. So make sure that you are focused on exactly that. What do I need in the competition and how do I set myself up for that? So stop thinking, run more, lift more, do more, do more, do more, and start thinking, how do I best prepare for that window of time and what is going to be overkill? Now, again, if you have any questions about that or you're unsure in any way, shape, or form, shoot me a message and I'm always happy to have these conversations with people. But I know it's something that's tough to wrap your head around, and don't get me wrong, I understand that a lot of you are going to listen to me say you're training too much and feel almost guilty. But those guilty feelings are because you've been told your whole life more training is better. And guys, it's just not true. A lot of training is good. Just like in the 32-ounce water bottle. 32 ounces is better than 18, but it's not better than 50 because 50 isn't what you need when you have a 32-ounce water bottle. Just for you guys, training to be able to spar for 15 rounds is cool. But being able to spar for 15 rounds doesn't mean that you can do 3 5s on the right night at the best pace every single time. All that means is that you're pacing yourself at a lower pace to be able to go for 15 rounds. Or you're getting hit more as those 15 rounds go on because you're tired and you're not reacting as quickly. And in turn, you're taking more damage, which is going to set you up for less success on the night of the fight. So you've got to ask yourself, what level is the right level? and what level is overkill, and stick to that actual right level if you want to see success in the sport. And that doesn't mean you're not going to work hard, guys. I know there are people that are going to listen to this and say, oh, he's telling us not to work hard. That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm pushing here. What I need you to take away from this is the understanding that the goal is not to work the hardest. The goal is to win the fight on the day that you actually have it. Some days you're going to need to recover more. Other days you're going to need to push harder. But it's got to be a balance. It can't just be balls to the fucking wall every single day and expect that that's magically going to work out as exactly the right result on exactly the right day. So all of you who tuned in, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time, whether you're here right now or whether you're listening back to this on the podcast, watching on the replay, whatever it might be. Thank you. If you have any questions whatsoever, like I mentioned, make sure you are sending me a message on any of my social media platforms. And as always, my one ask of you is share the show with a friend, share the show with a teammate, share the show with someone who is going to need to hear this message. That is it for me now. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll talk again soon. All right. Love that new chair. Oop, dropping things. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I got to get running to a meeting. So, yeah, as always, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great rest of your day.